You're more likely to survive if you assume the worst. And we're seeing this social behavior of assuming the worst in other people increasing as isolation increases, which is something that we should expect from just natural reactions to this unnatural situation. Unnatural situation, prolonged isolation, lack of in-person contact, which is an open secret that we all know, hey, we got a problem with this across modern society. And the natural instinct with that is to feel hostility towards the unfamiliar. And we are growing more unfamiliar, more disconnected from any sense of community, which is becoming vanishingly rare. So looking back to that story with Whinnie the Pooh and Pooh and Piglet visiting Eeyore, they're not having a conversation about, well, why do you feel so bad? Why don't you just do something to get over it? Why don't you just shake yourself out of it? Just brush it off. They're not saying crap like that. Friends are there for you. Friends, so it's, if you're saying just shake it off, that's not helping someone who is miserable. That's not giving good advice. I'm just trying to help them out. I'm just trying to help him pull himself up by his bootstraps. No, you want to be, oh my God, people today do not understand how to be a supportive friend. That concept, we just don't explore it, and we don't experience it a lot either. How do you be a supportive friend? A lot of these kinds of questions would usually be answered by cultural traditions, things that we would have been taught from prior generations, but there's a lack of transfer of meaningful knowledge and a lack of meaningful social experience to live this kind of experience, to understand, okay, here's this situation, this person's miserable, what's the appropriate thing to do to help them become better? We live in a time of hyper-reality where so much crap is fake, where a lot of our experiences are vicarious. They're not personally lived. We have these images, these projections of how we should act in a given situation that we may not have experienced ourselves, but we've read something about it on social media. We saw a news article talking about this. We saw a short clip from a Discovery Channel documentary. Even that sounds dated now. Things would be like, there's this thing that was on YouTube that I saw that touched on what's the right thing to do if you really want to get in a woman's pants. You just need to be more alpha, bro. It is kind of a reductio ad absurdum, taking something really complicated like the connection, how do you form a family is the ultimate thing that you're getting at there. It's not just about dating. It's like, well, how do we properly get together and perpetuate your family tree? I don't know if that's going into it too much, because the dating market in and of itself is not an end. But I'm getting down in the weeds, getting off track. Point being, very complex social interactions can be reduced to a kind of tunnel vision that's portrayed in a perspective that could be truncated into a video that would be very convincing for the very specific points that they're making, especially if someone delivers it in a very upbeat fashion and they seem like, well, it worked for me, bro, so that's how it's gonna work for you. But this is just a projection of an experience. This is not actual lived experience. You can tell absolute lies and get millions of views for it. And that's how social media runs, is what grabs people's attention and what spreads, and meaningful, in-depth discussions are not accessible to the lowest common denominator. Actual understanding, actual emotional investigation into very abstract ideas, like why do we feel the way that we feel within the context of how we're living today. That's not something that the average person is going to be able to get into. It's the kind of thing that makes people's eyes glaze over, because a lot of people take social interactions for granted. A lot of people take mental health for granted. And across human history, we've never had to really be overly focused on doing all of these backflips and pretzel twists in order to just achieve neutral mental health. Not even talking about thriving. I'm talking about not suffering, which requires consistent positive social interaction, which sounds like a pie in the sky tall order today. But again, I'm departing from the story, which I mean, that's part of the discussion. That's how real discussions take place, is you have some like loose topic that you're talking about. And as other ideas naturally come up in the discourse that you are having, you address those ideas as well and you move back and forth. It's not disorganized, it's not crazy thoughts meandering from one point to another. If you do have chunks of meaning that you are trying to get across. But the last chunk of meaning that I wanted to address from the story is they're not, so Eeyore's friends are not trying to give advice. They're not admonishing him for feeling miserable. They're showing understanding. This is showing and not telling, especially on social media. Like I mentioned before, it's a medium of communication hyper-focused on telling. Yes, you have images as well, but like text is a very big part of it. And when I'm talking about showing support, showing that you are a supportive friend, part of that is just being there for the other person and being comfortable in silence with them, being comfortable not having to fill the room up with hot air. And that's something where I was friends with Quakers. It's like a religious group where their kind of religious service is focused around sharing silence together. Yeah, you can, like, there's a point at which you can bring up different issues that are addressing, to address something that's going on either personally or in the community, but it's largely focused on being able to be comfortable in silence together. I ended up leaving that particular group because everyone was either dying or suicidal, but in like a cult kind of way. Not like I'm so depressed about everything. It's like they're nihilistic and completely gave up on having any efficacy in changing any of the problems in their lives, which was an absolutely toxic sort of situation. I'm not saying that all Quakers are some kind of cult or whatever, but they were not equipped to address the issue in any meaningful way whatsoever. So being like, you don't want to, misery loves company as one thing, and you don't want to be all woe is me and everything. You do have to recognize that when being around other people who only worsen the misery with the things that they say, you need to disconnect from that. That's where I absolutely resonated with being able to be comfortable in sharing silence with other people. As soon as they started talking, it's like, just how about you just shut up? We can enjoy each other's presence. We can form a friendship through our silence and through supportiveness. Well, but then there's the other thing. You need to be able to be comfortable in being silent around people that you have a sense of trust with. The things that you do say, so when you do share that silence, then the things that you do say carry more meaning. But if the things that you say are destructive, that's not going to help build people up. It's going to break them down. Yeah, there's psychological 4D chess that goes into the usefulness of breaking people down, especially if it's breaking down bad habits through criticism. Yes, but then you have to be able to rationally engage in a discourse about, is this a good habit or is this a bad habit? What's the basis for your perception? What is the argument for saying that X is good or Y is bad? Like, it's unhealthy to eat eggs, so you should never eat eggs. I'm gonna be like, okay, so what's the nutritional advice behind that? But as soon as you try and bring up anything that rationally addresses, like, okay, let's look at the reasons behind this. Oh, you just don't believe me? The people can get personally offended by that, especially older people who are really rooted in their ways. I was trying to just branch out with people, just get to know other people, and they were absolutely toxic. It's not just about just be silent only. It's like, no. I mean, we need to reflect on things, but the things that we do say also need to be meaningful. What I'm getting at is a kind of physical in-person interaction absolutely is essential for overcoming mental health stuff. Like, we have this misconception about mental health this misconception is spread way across society that you just need to talk through your problems. No, you need to work through your problems, and talk may be part of it, but taking action of one form or another is therapy. And this can be in an abstract way, like being part of a group of people who come together every Wednesday to draw anime pictures together. Art therapy is, you're not like building something, you're not, I don't know. What are you supposed to? You're not working out together, though. That would be another thing that would be a healthy way of taking some kind of action, doing something with a group of people to help solidify an identity, as well as being comfortable with sharing experiences, making memories with other people. What is the human experience if not sharing some kind of experience with other human beings?